It's Mark and David here this week to recap Warrington and to preview Salford. David, it's been a while since we've been on the same show where we've not been fighting against each other, so it's nice to speak to you.
I know, yeah, on the same team for once.
Excellent stuff. Right, so obviously there's loads for us to talk about, David, and probably loads of us to not get too positive about. So we wanted to start the show off on a positive note before we get to all of that, didn't we? And one of our other regular Wigan Fan TV hosts, Matt Macaulay, is celebrating his birthday today. So we wanted to wish him a happy birthday, didn't we, David? And we want to do it in a Macaulay's moment way. Yeah. So what we'll say is, put your hands in the air. Let me hear you say, we want to wish Matt Macaulay a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday, Matt. Right. And also, it's made me think, I don't think we've won a game since Matt stopped doing the raps. So, you know, coincidence? Who knows? But hopefully that'll get us back on winning ways.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Right, Warrington then. So it was 25-12 we lost at Warrington. Not quite the 50 points to 25 drubbing that Stuart expected last week. No. So let's start, I suppose, with what went wrong, because that was the start of the game.
Yeah, what went wrong? The start of the game, the result obviously as well. You just can't give Warrington an advantage, you know, in this day and age. You know, they've recruited well. So I was thinking, like, if you take it out of if you take that game and sort of take it away from everything that's been going on, all the results, everything that we've had with Lamb, etc., losing 25-12 at Warrington there's no shame in it. And again, with the performance wasn't quite there, but there were signs. There's a little bit of belief coming back in. The players seem to be wanting to, you know, they weren't quite in it, but they weren't out of it either. They weren't blown away, which a lot of people were predicting. So, yeah, it was the start, wasn't it, that killed us?
Yeah, and the penalty count. 12 penalties we conceded in the game. Warrington were just too fast for us, let's be honest about it. They were too fast for us around the ruck, and we couldn't deal with that. But like you say, the second half, we were arguably the better team, weren't we, in the second half? And actually, positive signs, yeah? You agree?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, losing 25-12 there's no shame in it. We've lost bigger scores at Warrington in recent years as well. It's just, I think it just compounded everything that's been going on. So, the players were there. They were showing a bit of commitment and desire, and the effort was definitely there. But it's just in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't the result we needed or wanted at the moment. But yeah, I think there's signs. If we'd have played probably half, maybe three-quarters of the rest of the Super League in that game, would have probably sneaked a win. But don't forget, we're playing, for me, one of the top two teams in the competition at the minute, which are Warrington and St Helens.
Yeah. A top team who, without maybe a couple of errors on their part and a great cover tackle from Zach Hardaker in the first half, might have been a little bit more ahead after that poor first half we had. There's two things in the second half that made me happy, and actually I came away from the game feeling a lot better than our team than I did arriving at the game. And the two things in particular was someone finally ran a line for George Williams with Willie Isa. When George goes sort of crabbing across the pitch looking for an opening, normally no one gives him one, and this time Willie Isa did. So that was fantastic. And also in the first half, Gildark basically got shoulder charged in the air, I thought, by Josh Charnley, and none of our forwards went and grabbed Josh Charnley by the throat, and I thought that's a team spirit issue. But when the fight happened in the second half, everyone was in, everyone had each other's backs, and it made you feel like the team spirit. Maybe we just needed a fight to get the team spirit back.
Possibly, yeah. And James makes a good point there about Jake Shorrocks, because I think Shorrocks is, it's hard to say last chance saloon, but he's been really unfortunate with injuries. But you think if he's going to make a mark, it's now when we're struggling on confidence, we're not settled in the halves, and there's potential there, particularly long term. You think Shorrocks maybe needs to grab these opportunities now, and he did show a bit of spark and a bit of zip in there, which was good. I'm glad you mentioned Hardaker's tackle as well, because you're just saying about the desire and the commitment and the players piling in with the fight. I think possibly not, there were murmurs, but Hardaker's attitude maybe has been questioned because things aren't going Wigan's way, and it's very easy to slip into old habits. That tackle for me sort of made me think, he's there was no way he was letting that ball,
Yeah.
that try could be scored. And I think that was a desire on his part, and that sort of gave me a bit of a boost in terms of his, his performances and where he's at the moment. Because if we're going to do anything this season, we need Zach Hardacre firing on all cylinders.
We do. We need our big three players, which are George Williams, Shaun O'Loughlin, and Zach Hardacre. They're the three players who have arguably any chance of being considered world class in our side, and we need them firing, don't we? Like you say, Zach Hardacre's defence has not been a problem. It's still not quite there in attack. I'm a little bit worried about that. But then when the counter argument is, well, play Morgan Escaray at fullback. Fundamental aspect of fullback play for me is catching the ball, and 2 or 3 times this season is let his skills down in skills.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a big Escaray fan because he makes things happen. He makes defences worry and he makes them think twice, and that's where the gaps come from. You talk about Hardacre, and I think Hardacre will thrive more as well once you've got the likes of Williams firing, because you look at how he was behind Luke Gale. And it was that combination, it was that halfback combination. And I think if Williams is firing as well and making breaks and doing things, that'll bring Hardacre onto another level as well, because that's what we want him for. That's where he needs to be, chiming into the line and taking on defences and outsmarting them. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll click soon. Hopefully this weekend. But I think there's
he scored a try.
Yeah.
He scored a try in the pre-season game at Salford, so hopefully he scores his first proper try for Wigan in the proper game at Salford.
Yeah, and I think Escaray
discipline.
I think Escaray, just before we move on, is just there is a worry about lapses in defence particularly, but I just don't think we're still using him. Last season, towards the tail end of the season, when he was coming on as that late substitution, that was where he was ripping teams apart, Warrington included, and it was him that sort of made a massive change in the game towards the end of the season with Warrington and kind of helped with Dom, but it was Escaray's breaks that was cutting them to shreds. So there's a place for him. I don't think he needs to take the fullback spot from Hardacre, but we need something different and we need a plan B.
I agree with what you're saying about Escaray. In fact, I think it applied to almost the whole season last year. And the way we used him, we put him in an opportunity where we're using his strengths but not exposing his weaknesses, which is what Shaun Wayne did really well tactically with Morgan Escaray last season. And to be honest, the interchange thing maybe could have thought about changing that, but I don't think that we're really struggling that much with the interchange reduction on that. On a fitness point of view, I think all the clubs are so I think we can still use him like we used him last season. Although Shorrocks played really well, a few people have come up in the comments about that, and actually on the Super League pod this week, and it shows just how little Shorrocks have been around. We had a few comments from people, fans of other teams, saying they'd never seen Shorrocks play before and they were impressed by what they saw. Well, he's been around our first team for like 4 or 5 years now, hasn't he, David? And for someone to have not seen him play, it shows just how injury cursed he's been over the last 3 seasons. So, all the best to him, and I hope he stays in the squad for Salford.
Yeah, and that performance against Warrington reminded me, the games that he was playing just before he had his first real serious injury, which I think was at Widnes on the eye pitch. I think it was the game that was hastily rearranged and went from Wigan to Widnes within 24 hours, and that was when he got injured. But the form that he was... the form that he showed, the touches that he showed against Warrington was very much of that ilk of what he was performing a couple of years back. So yeah, definitely, fingers crossed he can stay fit, because he is a good player and he has got talent.
People are missing Shaun and Matt, but I'm hoping we can give enough. We're not good enough for the people, David, but we'll try our best. Right, before we move on from the Warrington game, discipline. Okay, a few comments have come up about cutting out the penalties, that sort of stuff. I think in 2 games this season now, we've been in 3 games maybe we've been in double figures in penalties. Certainly the London away game and the game against Warrington, double figures in penalties. Not good enough, is it that? Do you think there's it is a problem? How do we address it, David?
Do you know, it's how do we address it, but also without sounding... like a real cherry-tinted glasses on. Sometimes you do feel like the refs are taking us back that little bit, they're pulling us back the full 10 metre, making us stick to it, whereas they're taking other teams, back 8 or 9 metres. And the players have just got to...
Do you want to know a stat?
Yep.
we've been awarded the fewest penalties in Super League this season. So we're not winning the ruck.
Yeah.
When we've got the ball, we're not winning the ruck. So we're not winning penalties. So maybe there is an element of that. Refs are maybe putting us back. I don't know. I don't buy into that sort of theory. But we're not winning them, and we're giving them away.
Yeah. But again, it's just around, you talked about the reduction in interchange and fitness. It's about getting back, that desiring effort to get back those 10 metres and get yourself ready for the next one. The ruck's a huge part of it, and if we've never had a dynamic hooker either. In terms of all of our hookers over recent years, going back to Mickey and Mike, they've not been a Roby or a Darryl Clark type that'll pop you out.
Got to go all the way back to Mickey Hyam for one who ran from dummy half.
Exactly, and it's the ruck's an important element, and maybe again without sort of questioning too much around Lamb's techniques, and the defence seems to have completely changed, and maybe Lamb's just trying to change things for changing things' sake to put his own stamp on it, which is fine because obviously he's looking to try and make a statement and get himself a job for next year as well. But you shouldn't have tried and fix something that's not broken inherently. And I think the defence is showing that we're not really performing. And there's just too much. Not far away, but I think defensively we just need to be that little bit quicker. We need to make sure that we're the wrestle as well. Shaun Wayne was big on the wrestling and the grappling, and that was probably when we were winning penalties, and we see that seems to have dropped off as well. Yeah.
So once the intensity gets back up, I'm sure we can address that from both sides, hopefully. Right. We're trying to talk about Warrington because we don't want to get onto the next topic, David, because... Right, he needs a little time to think things over. Shaun Edwards, what on earth is going on, David? What do you know? What do you think?
Well, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Ian Lenigan knows, to be honest with you. And by the sounds of it with Shaun Edwards, I don't think he knows. It's just a mess, and it's just a massive PR. It's just not good enough. It really isn't. Lenigan, I'm a big advocate of Lenigan, and people have been calling him out, saying, he's tight with the purse strings. Him and his family and his group of companies have been propping Wigan up for the last 5 years. So I've got no problem with Lenigan. He's brought us back great times. We've been winning trophies. We've had Wembley trips under Lenigan's reign. So I don't have an issue with that as such. I do think there's something going awry, with the whole Shaun Wayne thing last season. And the one thing that I will say that Wigan is terrible at is keeping the fans informed in an honest way. I know Lenigan doesn't like commentating on speculation, and he likes things to be done. Go on.
That takes us to the in inverted commas statement from Monday,
exactly,
doesn't it?
Exactly.
Really,
you go
we
back
were
and it's
rock and a hard place situation. Everyone was demanding all weekend after Edwards came out and said he'd signed no contract with Wigan. All the fans were demanding to hear what's going on. We need a statement from the club. The club need to say something. The club obviously had nothing to say because they'd not spoken to him and maybe weren't expecting these things to say. So the club had to come out with a statement that said, we don't know. We're trying to speak to him, but we ain't got a clue. And then everyone slagged the club for that statement. And like Anthony's comment there, it was embarrassing for us all as fans, probably for the club as well itself. I don't want to know what Twitter thinks, Rob. I'm not on board with that idea. I think the Pies will get smashed finally if he actually came and played for us. But no one knew what was going on. No one really understands. And so the club had to come out with something to appease the fans, but then it turns out it didn't appease the fans, did it? So we're in this situation, right? Okay. We've got Edwards saying he never signed a contract. We've got the club releasing a press release with Shaun Edwards sat there. So Ian Lenigan and Shaun Edwards both saying he signed a contract for us, a 3-year deal. Okay. There's been the conjecture on the Wigan Today website about does it form an oral contract form, a legally binding one? There's a little bit of uncertainty about that because we don't know how deep the discussions went around salaries, working conditions, that side of stuff. There's been suspicious suggestions that he's had offers from Wasps. He's waiting on an offer potentially from England Rugby Union. And now, today, Wales Rugby Union have come back in and said that basically, if he's got no job, we might find something for him back. After Edwards after the new coach coming into Wales Rugby Union had made comments that basically implied he would have had him, but Edwards wanted to come to Wigan last year.
Exactly. exactly.
So it's starting to get into a who do we trust, who do we believe situation. And that is really bad when we're talking about a club legend and then the current owners who aren't going anywhere right now, even though reportedly they might want to be trying to sell the club. There doesn't seem to be any movement anywhere like that in reality. So who do we trust? Edwards or Lenigan, basically?
Well, I would have trusted Edwards of a fashion in terms of the not signing the contract, because if he had signed a contract, Wigan could have quite easily put that to bed and gone, there you go, here's a piece of paper, that's Shaun Edwards' signature, there's a contract that we've had. Wigan could have put that to bed so easily. But Edwards saying that he was, for me, the fact as well that the incoming Wales coach has sort of said, well, yeah, he was the incumbent, he would have had a job here, but he indicated to us that he was going to Wigan. So, and again, why would he say that if that wasn't true and that wasn't, I don't understand why a Wales coach would get involved with something like that without it being true. Because if that comes back and it's not true, then they didn't need to get embroiled in it, did they? Really? For me, there's two things. The one thing that is, Shaun Edwards, he's got to have time to think about. I read it again. I'm thinking he's got to have time to think about it. So for me, the one thing Shaun Edwards is, should remember, Shaun Edwards is an iconic Wigan player. He's the most decorated player in rugby league history, but he was one cog of a massive team. Obviously, Wigan were dominant at the time because they were professional. They had all the money, etc. But Shaun Edwards was a key part of that cog. But when you look at the players that he was surrounded by, Ellery Hanley, Andy Gregory, Dean Bell, Brett Kenny, Graham West, like literally a who's who of legends of the Wigan game who helped him to become the player. There was Martin Afire, him and Afire worked in tandem brilliantly with the tries. And Shaun Edwards has gone on to have a successful career in rugby union after that. But Wigan gave him the platform for that. It was his efforts and achievements at Wigan that gave him the platform to go on and do things in rugby union, as they've done for Andy Farrell as well. And he needs to remember that. And the one thing that this situation is hurting more than anybody is the fans, because the fans don't have a clue. And if he's got to think about it, for me personally, if he's got to think about it, then go, see ya. What's there to think about? It should be an honour to coach Wigan. It shouldn't be an option. It shouldn't be a well, I'll think about it. For me, it's got to be that there's other opportunities in rugby union coming for him. The fact that he's put little snippets out here and there. If he's not had a contract and he's been waiting 9 months, then he shouldn't be releasing that in a press conference to Wales Rugby Union online after a Grand Slam. He should be picking up the phone to Lennon and going, "When are we getting the contract sorted?" That's something that should never have ever needed to go in the public domain. And for me personally, the fact that he's come out and said he has to think about it, no, don't bother. We'll move on to something better.
What's he been given to think about? Someone else has given him something to think about that he might want to take, isn't it? Rather than So. Philip's put a question I've seen in the comments about what I said about wanting to sell. I'm only repeating speculation that I've heard on other outlets there about that potentially being somewhere in the background. I've never heard anything myself concrete on that, but I think it was the 4020 Live podcast where Phil Camplin, who's pretty good resource, I think it was Phil Camplin, maybe Mark Wilson, who mentioned that. So I'm just repeating in the speculation there on that, and we do love a bit of speculation when we're fans, don't we? So we'll wait and see on that. There's hello. You got a friend over your shoulder.
Harry's joining us. It's in
Well, so the one thing I think that throws a little bit of credibility, discredits the club a little bit, and I'm going to throw it out there because it's got me concerned today, is I read through the sporting, the report for the tribunal for the salary cap breach. Yeah. And the reading of that doesn't make great reading for Chris Radlinski and for Ian Lenigan. It essentially seems like Chris Radlinski didn't have a very great handle on how the salary cap regulations worked when he was when these breaches occurred 2 years ago, and it seems that Ian Lenigan maybe didn't have a very close, link into what was going on when these things first came up. If what is said in there is to be believed, and I've got no reason to believe it, it seems like people from the Wigan club were interviewed about a potential salary cap breach before Mr. Lenigan even knew about a potential salary cap breach. So, I just think I'm only saying all this stuff really because there's real concerns for me, and I I love our club.
Yeah.
I love Wigan Rugby League, and I have a lot of time as well for Ian Lenigan for what he's done in the last 10 years, because my first 10 years of actively following the club were pretty crap. We weren't, other than 2002 aside, it wasn't the greatest of times to be a Wigan fan and stuff like that, whereas this last 10 years we've had ridiculous levels of success.
Yeah.
So all that is fantastic, and I don't want to question stuff, but when there's reason to question stuff, it's worrying. It's worrying. So, what do you think is going to happen? I know you're sort of suggesting Edwards, you might not really want him now if he's got to this stage and wanting to think it over. But what do you think? What do you think will happen? Do you think he will come to Wigan or not?
I don't think he'll come. I don't think he'll come. If he was, if he's got things to think about, then for me that's a concern that something might be, that something's possibly turned his head and something might be better coming along the line. It's, I'm not going to use any analogies on it, but for me, that I don't think he'll come, because if he was coming and he wanted to come, he'd have said so. No, it's rubbish. Yeah, I'm not going to contract, but it's all right. I'll sign one in the next couple of days. I'll sit down with Ian Lenigan. There's no rush. Adrian Lamb's there till the end of the season. What's everybody worrying about? So I personally don't think he'll come. If he was coming in, it was sorted. I know he said today that they'll probably release a they'll probably release a statement in the next few days once he's spoken with the chairman.
So this is my reading of that, David, and this is what I think is going to happen. If he is coming to the club, which I'm doubtful of, like you are, if he is still coming to the club, like was agreed last year, then we will hear an announcement within 2 days, and that the statement will be out there very quickly, is what I'm saying. If it's all as it was, if it's not as it was, then probably by this time next week we might have heard something. Not sure what. It's not. Josie's comment there echoes one I think that Stu said as well, about people will start turning away from the stands if this is what keeps happening, and that's true, but we've seen that anyway with a successful team. So what I will say is I know the club have ambitions and intentions in place to get the crowds up. And we're going to actually talk about a couple of those things. Let's jump around the order a little bit, actually. And before we preview the Salford game, let's talk about some ticket deals, because let's talk some positive things about the club, some sensible things about the club. By the way, I like the idea of Paul Deacon coming back as a coach, but that's possibly one for another time when we actually know. Next week, we might be in a position to start talking about who will be the coach next year and who we want to be the coach next year. But Andrew's comment about Paul Deacon, I like that. But let's talk about the club promotion of the Catalans game, David, because there's been 2 separate promotions announced this week by the club. If you go on the club website, you'll see these. One of them is linked in. I'm going to have to get my tablet up to get this right. But one of them's linked into Autism Awareness Week, which is in the build up to which is around the Catalan home game on the 31st of March. Our next home game, of course, a week on Sunday. Now, the club's community foundation, has teamed up with Wigan Council and Autism Friends to raise money to make attending live sports events more accessible for autistic people. Okay, so they're going to offer £10 tickets for for people with autism, and a donation from those tickets will go to local autism initiatives through Wigan Council and through the Autism Friends, and also to make the environment more welcoming, more comfortable, or what have you, for people with autism. Then we will also have ear defenders available for people to pick up if people might be concerned about noise levels and that sort of stuff. A Sunday afternoon game, normally we don't have great noise levels, so that's a good game to bring them to anyway. But ear defenders are available, and I think that's a really cool initiative from the club. And then the second initiative is basically Bring your mum for free day.
Stu's all over that.
But effectively, you go to the club's website and either you can phone the ticket office or print off a voucher form that you can fill in. You just have to give a few details of stuff. And then you can get a free ticket, effectively. She'll be on the pitch with a flag all the time. Oh, it's Spencer's mum. I thought it was Stu's mum.
No, Spencer. Getting in on it.
Fair enough. Okay. Andrew's asked about the fans panel. Yeah, me and Shaun are involved in the fans panel, and actually, there should be some activity soon. I think all these other announcements around the club and all this Shaun Edwards speculation is kind of hindering things a little bit. And one of the big initiatives the fan engagement board were working on was to get kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like fan parks, basically, on the Robin Park car park for home games this season. The problem we've got with that is Robin Park's being redeveloped, so all our first team people can all move there, and it's got the right gym facilities, tackling pits, and all that sort of stuff are getting built in. So you will be hearing more about the fan engagement panel, Andrew, in the coming weeks, and we hope to have some sort of fan park of area for the St Helens game on Good Friday. So that's all I really know at the moment about that sort of stuff. It's not gone, but it's still there. But back to the promotion for the game. So basically, it says who can take up the offer. Anyone who you think is special enough to be treated to a Wigan Warriors game on Mother's Day, basically. So do go on the club's website. It's just been put on there today, and get your mum, your auntie, your grandma, your friend, whoever. Get those people to claim a free ticket, and hopefully we'll pack out our next home game. Hopefully it'll be a positive experience too, and more of us will start turning up. Ticket details are already out for the Good Friday derby as well, and like I say, hopefully there'll be a fan park and a few more announcements along the way to that. So that's the positive things that the club are doing at the moment that counteract all these things that we're really bloody worried about.
Yeah. No, they're good initiatives. They are good initiatives.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave, that was all me talking. Yeah, you...
It's fine. It's fine. You're like an ambassador.
Well, I do love the club. So, if your mum has a season ticket, Josie, on the article, it does say you can contact the ticket office for refunds. I don't know how that will work with season tickets, I've got to be honest. But if you've bought a match day ticket, you should be able to get a refund if you want to claim a free one for that person instead. So do get in touch with the ticket office, basically. Read the article on the Wigan Warriors website. Okay, Salford Preview, David.
Yeah.
How are you feeling heading into the weekend's game?
I'll be honest with you, I'm still not expecting a win. I think that we're getting closer, and maybe we would have beaten Salford on last week's performance, but I think Salford will be looking for a big performance against us as well. They always seem to want to try and knock us off. James's comment there, Budgie. Do I think that Budgie deserves to get back in the team? Not really in terms of, I think he needs to prove himself. However, the flip side of that is that some of our best performances over the last few years have come when we've had Williams, Gildart, Burgess, and obviously Liam Farrell's not around, but that golden edge. But I think that, Williams, Burgess and Gildart in particular, because they've played with, alongside each other for so long, that might be something that kickstarts Williams again. Obviously, we've not even spoken about the speculation about George going to Canberra next year as well, in amongst everything with all the Edwards. But I think we did speak about it last week, but that episode has been lost a little bit. You can catch that episode on the YouTube channel and the podcast channel. I'm not sure Facebook ever really worked for the people who didn't see it live. Probably not. But yeah, I think that having Burgess there, might give Williams that, especially with little kicks through that, Burgess seems to have a sort of sixth sense as to where Williams is going to place the kicks, and has been a grateful recipient of many tries from that move over the last few years. So I think that might give us a boost. I think Joe Burgess has got a try a game strike rate pretty much as well over the last 2 seasons since he came back from us. So I'd have him straight back in. I think that's a positive. Manfredi is another one who looks to be back in contention, but it's not as certain on that one. Ben Flower should be back in for the game. Sam Powell probably not quite back this week, but we're not that concerned, are we? Because we like Shorrocks off the bench. Well, yeah, there is. That's a dilemma as well, isn't it? I think maybe we've got too many options for the bench, because you look at, you've got Samet, you've got Powell, you could have Powell, Luluai, Samet, Escaré, Shorrocks, all these players vying for sort of in and around the, the halves and the hooker position for coming on and making impact. So we've got sort of 5 or 6 that need to go into 2 or 3, and it doesn't really go. And it's whoever performs the best in training that's going to get that spot, I suppose, because he's sort of tried them all in game time, and with the results we've had, nobody's really shone. So I think it must be whoever's performing in training that gets the nod.
And we probably need to get some sort of idea of who wants to nail down those places. Right, a few comments have been popping up. David, talking about how Salford are not going to be an easy proposition, but also talking about how good Jackson Hastings has been playing, talking about maybe if we can stop Hastings, then that's a key to winning this game. I would say it's not just Hastings. Niall Evalds has been the best fullback in Super League so far this year. Who knew Jake Bibby could actually be a Super League level centre? and actually, Gil Dudson, I mean... I sort of thought he'd completely disappeared from the top level standing in the game after playing for us in the double season, and he's back at Salford. He's playing far better than he ever did at Widnes. So they're a team to be worried about. Who are you worried about in the Salford lineup?
Like you said, I think you've named them. Hastings and Evalds are the threats. Really, Hastings is. I've got a lot of time for him. When there was rumours that we were signing him, I wasn't one that was on board with us signing him, and I still don't know whether that's the case. I still think he's angling for a move back to the NRL, but he does good. But he does good things. He's used this chance at Salford really well, and he's very good on social media. He's very good, particularly with the youngsters, and that's the sort of thing I like to see. He has made a difference at Salford, and they're lucky to have him, but. Yeah, he's someone that can make them tick, but we should have enough to beat Salford, but we should have had enough to beat Huddersfield, and we should have had enough to beat London, and you keep going backwards and backwards. But I think if we keep Hastings and Evalds quiet, then we might be in with a shout.
The crucial aspect for me, I suppose, is how much confidence did we actually get in from that last half, from the second half against Warrington? If we picked up a lot of confidence in that from the way we played, but also the way we played more for each other and with each other in that second half against Warrington. If we can carry confidence from that into this game, then that combats their great confidence going into this game. So I think that would be a big help for us. You think we're going to lose. I think we're going to win, but I'm always optimistic about these things.
I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm completely hoping I'm wrong. I still think there's too much distraction at the minute. There's too much going on and around, and I think the one thing, like you said about the team pulling together, I think the one thing that we always had with Wayne in charge, and we don't want to keep harping on about like he's an ex, but the one thing that we had from Wayne was he had his players that believed everything for him and would put the bodies on the line for him. He had his lieutenants on the pitch, the likes of McAlore and Sean O'Loughlin, the Tompkins brothers, Matty Smith going. He had John Bateman. He had players there that if he said run through that brick wall, they'd run through it for him. And that's come from time and experience and bringing a lot of those players through the youth system and working with them for a long time. Lamb's not got that luxury. Lamb's got to sort of go do this because it's the right thing to be doing. And I don't think that half of those players would put the bodies on the line for Lamb, whereas I think a lot of them felt the owed Wayne quite a bit, so they would do. And hopefully that desire, we showed a bit, like you said, with the brawl at Warrington, the players were straight in, backing each other up and not standing for anything, particularly when Westwood had his little moment on Escaray, typical pick on the little guy. But hopefully that'll come back, and if we can get that spirit and get that never say die attitude, then it can be an us against them attitude against the rest of Super League. Because make no mistake about it, everybody apart from probably Leeds fans are revelling in us languishing near the foot of the table at the moment. They can't really revel in it.
To that.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's just what you'd expect, and I'd be more worried if fans were a bit sort of nonchalant and not really showed a bit of that apathy towards us, because even though we're not performing well, if they still want us to get knocked off, then we're still in their minds and still in their thoughts. So, I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I just can't see the win coming at the moment. I've just not seen enough. There was sparks in the Warrington game, but I've still not seen enough to think that we've turned that corner yet.
Yeah, well, Wigan by 12 seems to be a popular call. I was just double checking what prediction I gave out on Super League Pod so I can remain consistent. Wigan by 10 was what I went for. But Sarah, who co-hosted that show with me this week, went for Salford by 4. So
I was going to say Salford by 4. I was literally going to say Salford by 4 then.
Well, there you go. So a few other people have been popping up stuff like that, and there's been comments about Lamb not having Bateman. You just mentioned Bateman, and how good was Bateman for Canberra?
Yeah, is it? Do you know
it's what we're missing.
Well, you say what we're missing. You look at it, and on paper, I think we've lost a lot more off field, and that influence in that Wigan way. Hardaker's a more than capable replacement for Tompkins. Greenwood's a more than capable replacement for Bateman. Bullock's more than capable replacement for Sutton in on paper and as players. But I think the other thing that they bring, I mean, John Bateman, the clip of him where he wins the penalty and he's getting wrestled to the ground, and then he gets up and dummies the ball and then just laughs the bloke. And I saw a lot of social media reaction to John Bateman. They're all absolutely loving him, which we knew they would. And it was one of those. It's like I can guarantee you by round 10, John Bateman will be the player that every single fan of every other club hates, but Canberra fans will absolutely think he's the best thing since sliced bread, and they will, because we're missing that bit of mongrel and that bit of animal, aren't we? We are missing that. Greenwood's not that type of player, but Greenwood, for me, when he's on form, offers much more in attack than Bateman does. Bateman's just, he'll drive your yards, he'll never take a backward step, he'll tackle like the cows come home, but I don't think he's that sort of player that'll make a break and set a try, whereas I think Greenwood does.
Okay. I mean, he made a try all by himself against St Helens last year in the Super 8s. That shows some of the things he can do. But no, I get what you're saying. And Tony Pete missed what we said about the 40-20 room. It was mentioned on 40-20 Live this Monday that Ian Lenigan might be looking to sell the Wigan club, but so we threw that in along with the sort of speculation, Tony. But we're now talking about us how we're going to beat Salford, and Stu's got us beating Salford potentially in Golden Point. That would be nice. Yeah, and also, you know what, John Bateman's performances. If there's some people whose heads are switched off from Wigan because they're thinking they're going elsewhere, that can, that might inspire them. That might inspire them for what they can do down under. And then lots of times over the last few years, we've talked about how we can only go as far as Shaun O'Loughlin takes us. I have had some concerns about Shaun O'Loughlin's performances this year so far, and I actually think George Williams played with a lot more freedom and influence on the side on Friday night when O'Loughlin and Luluai were off the pitch. Yeah. However, with O'Loughlin's been giving away more penalties than you would like, and making a few really poor errors as well. The one in the London game, the clean drop in the London game as time was running down, just sticks so much in the mind. But Shaun O'Loughlin's not the kind of player who, class is permanent, as they say. Yeah. So, if he can find that magic click, then I think we could work wonders. The final thing I want to talk about tactics and team selection and that sort of stuff, and going back to the halfback question, because our problem probably has been scoring tries. We've had a few ropey defensive performances where we've let a lot of gaps go or let a lot of offloads go, but I think intensity has been shown to have increased in that second half against Warrington. So if we show that intensity defensively, we'll be okay. Yeah. Attack still, I'm worried about where we're at. Now, what do you think about the whole idea of Lamb was bringing in a new attacking philosophy this year and all that sort of stuff? And what have you seen of that? And then I'll sort of suggest the only one thing I've seen of that.
To be honest with you, I've not seen a huge amount of it. I was exactly the same. I thought, great, we've got the foundations here. I wasn't too disheartened with the players that were outgoing, in terms of Tompkins, Bateman and Sutton, because I thought the players that we've got in are more than capable. I think what I underestimated was the impact of, the Wigan way, Sam Tompkins and John Bateman, even though he came from Bradford. Yeah, John Bateman had that culture ingrained in him from being a teenager when we signed him from Bradford, and that's what we're missing in terms of that element. Hardaker's not got that. Bullock's got it to an extent before he went to Lee, and then Barrow, and then coming back. Greenwood's not got it. And that's the thing that we're missing, in particular when you've lost the sort of the glue that held it all together with Wayne as well, with that culture. It's a massive piece in terms of what Lamb's brought.
And then we've had people like Farrell and Flower out injured, but
but
doesn't
again,
help on the pitch, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I think that was a hugely important part of what made Wigan so successful over the last few years, and I think that's been underestimated. Even by myself. I think that I can't help but thinking that Lam has tried to change. Lam has even said in a few things, in a few press statements that the players, the players all, can't quite put his finger on it. He's not sure why it's not working, which sets the alarm bells ringing. But the players all buy into what he's trying to do, and they all believe in it. And it's almost as if he's gone, right, come on, lads, we've got to attack like this. And it's like, boss, we've got some defending training, we've got some wrestling to do. Oh, we've not got time for that now. We'll do that next week. Don't worry about it. And it's almost like they've just completely forgotten that tackling is just the fundamentals that have won us grand finals. And yeah, I've not noticed anything in attack because we just normally in previous seasons, even though we weren't great on attack with Wayne, sometimes you get into the opponent's red zone, the 20-metre zone, and 80% of the time you're scoring a try, whether that's from a scrum and pinging it one way and then pinging it back the other, whether it's from a kick.
Yeah.
But sometimes now you just think, well, we're gonna run, we're gonna take a few drives in, we'll not have anybody running the line, and then we'll do a kick which doesn't even get us a repeat set.
It's interesting, yeah. Last tackle options and the lack of sort of forwards running back lines for like players cutting across the pitch. When you watch St. Helens do that really well, and we don't do it at all until Willie Ice did last week. They've kind of remained the same from some of the problems we had under Wayne for me. So you do struggle to see where the improvements are. And I think we've struggled to see any improvements because there haven't been any improvements yet. It doesn't mean there haven't been changes. And the one change I've really... Yeah, Ben Flower, top try scorer, someone's put in the comments, which is true. The one thing I've noticed changed is that once we get into the opposition 20, George Williams has become the second receiver almost every play, or every second play, really, because sometimes he can't get back over the other side of the pitch. So he's swapping from side to side once we get into attacking positions. Now, that might be unsettling some of the set moves that worked before, and George is still adapting to that. If he can bring that into his game and play both sides of the ruck and be the huge creative influence that he already has been with like a try assist every other game for the last 4 years or whatever it was, and then a try every third game sort of stats that he's put, which are great. If he can bring that in, that will be fantastic. It just is taking too long to work, unfortunately. And what we've got there is we've got Williams and Hardacre, who are both very talented, creative, attacking players who can finish stuff off as well as make stuff. But they're not quite understanding the patterns they're supposed to be in yet. So hopefully, the more and more and more time that they get doing that, this is going to click. Because at the moment, our best try-scoring option is a drop-off to a forward with like Flower, Club doing something against London. All our tries against London were forwards. All our tries in open play, against Leeds, Bullock, against Saints, Flower, have been from forwards pretty much. Even, I suppose, Liam Farrell's one, which was our most nice-looking try of the season so far against Leeds. They've all been from forwards. So it is very interesting that... to me, that's looks like the strategy. The big change in strategy is Williams being second receiver, trying to be the creative influence across the park on last tackle plays. And once that works, because Williams is such a talented, creative player when he makes the right choices, which isn't enough, but usually his talent overcomes half of the times he makes the wrong choice, and his ability means that half the time he does still make the right choice. We should start scoring some points. So what I'm saying is it's not all lost. We're only a few games into the season. We're only 4 points off the playoffs.
No. He'll probably, do you know what? He'll probably get it perfected just in time to be able to showcase those qualities when he's playing alongside Bateman and Whitehead next year.
And and that's another worry for us. So we're back to the concerns, which many are. I think that's as positive as I can leave it is this week. It's not been a good week, has it?
According to you, we're going to win. Williams is going to find some form. Hardacre is going to start scoring tries. So it's all rosy.
Well, I wouldn't say it's all rosy. It's certainly concerning. I'm very concerned about the state of things off the field, and the things on the field aren't quite right yet, are they? But I think that, there you go. Spencer's saying it'll click. I just want to be positive and optimistic.
Just in time for Good Friday.
We're 4 points off the playoffs, and we're not bottom despite the situation we're in. So only thanks
to the Independent Tribunal are we not bottom.
Yeah, which you can read the full things on. And that was another thing that makes for slightly concerning reading.
Yeah.
Gosh, we keep coming back to concerns. Right.
No.
I think we should close this off now. We've done 40 minutes or so. So I want to thank everyone for watching. It's been great to chat to you, David. It's been cool that we've had some difference of opinions along the way. I hope to see lots of you all at Salford on Sunday. I also hope that we'll get loads of people to take advantage of the club's offers for the Catalans game, and we'll see some of you guys there as well. But for now, it is goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.